Hey family, thanks for tuning in. I'm Ant, this is BT. The purpose of our show is to give a black perspective toward controversial and uncomfortable subjects. Unapologetic is a safe space for us and our viewers to embrace those difficult conversations. So with that being said, let's get right into it. BT, how you feeling, man?
Man, blessed to see another day, man. It's just a great day. How you feeling today?
Man, I'm blessed, man. I can't complain. Man, let's get right into it, man. We chose to take on this journey of tackling some uncomfortable subjects, so
Yeah, we did.
let's not mess around and get right into it. So with that being said, in your opinion, what's the difference between Black Lives Matter versus the alternative All Lives Matter?
Man, you get into the juicy stuff right away, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, so in my perspective then, so Black Lives Matter was created based on the foundation that Black lives should be cared about and sought after more often than they are, not by the common citizen, correct? Because I don't want to generalize, but by the government, and that's between systemic racism and systemic oppression and things of that nature, right? And then also from their peers in some certain spaces, and then of course the overlying police brutality front, right? So that is the reason why the Black Lives Matter organization and the concept was created. All Lives Matter is not an organization. All Lives Matter is not, a concept. It's merely created just to be, I guess, an opposition or to oppose the concept of Black lives do really matter. The whole concept behind All Lives Matter was really the simple fact that it was created to negate and to deflect from the focus that we're trying to bring towards black people, to say, hey, I do think some additional attention is needed towards black people, because right now we feel like we have the underhand when it comes to our society, right? All Lives Matter, there is no front, there is no premise, there's no growth, there's no target goal for them to work towards, and it's really just created to be, negligent.
Right.
So that's how I feel in the general sense.
Right. No, I feel that 100%, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. I feel like the main difference between the two is where and how it stemmed from.
Right.
Whereas the Black Lives Matter was obviously the first one. That's what started everything. That stemmed from the murder of an unarmed black man.
Correct.
And so the whole premise, the whole stem, the whole reasoning behind the whole Black Lives Matter movement is simply just saying that black people's lives matter. Like, we want to be seen as people, not as animals to be slaughtered, or hunted down or killed without any type of justification or any type of arms being had, anything along those lines.
Which happens far too often.
Yeah, it happens. It happens way too often. It's quite frankly unacceptable. Whereas the All Lives Matter, to your point, like, I don't feel there's any premise. Like, what is the goal? I feel like the only thing that I've heard people that argue on that side of things is that they just want to be included. Included in what? What are you upset about besides the fact that you aren't black, so therefore you aren't included in the name? So to me, I think the main thing is where it stems from, and I think it's just, quite frankly, it's sad the fact that people would take something this sensitive as far as the whole concept and subject of Black Lives Matter and take it and try to pivot into something for their own personal gain. And take away from the actual thing that's going on in society that needs to be awareness needs to be brought to initially, and then change needs to happen after that.
Correct. And I think part of that comes with the education piece of what Black Lives Matters really means, because there's a strong misconception to the society that Black Lives Matter as an organization has a political agenda, that they are, some fascist, Marxist, communist organization, which is just some of the most ludicrous things that I've ever seen. But just a simple fact that, like, people always try to go target and take down the system before it even gets some feet behind it. That just shows from the general basis of that that All Lives Matter is not trying to work or progress towards anything. It's just like a negligent, concept. So with that, I want to ask you back then.
What's up?
Do you have any empathy for citizens that try to, project or portray the fact that All Lives Matter is actually a thing?
I would say I have a level of empathy, but it's not. I don't completely agree with them. I have empathy only for a certain segment of people that have that ideal mindset, and that's for the segment of people that are just purely ignorant and do not have that education that you're speaking to. Because you can't expect everyone to understand what you're going through. Like, I don't expect you, for example, to go know what I'm going through, just like I can't expect a white man or someone that is not black to understand what I go through day in and day out and how that makes me feel. Just seeing what happens to me and people that look like me. So I do have a level of empathy. It's not like full blown, like I totally get it. Like I do have a certain level of empathy just for the pure ignorance aspect of it. People that just don't know and that need these type of conversations to happen like what we're having right now for them to understand.
Right. And I think that, and one of the things you kind of hinted on and towards was the fact of ignorance, right? Yeah. And I think the concept of that comes back to two different things. So there's ignorance that is just by lack of knowledge, right? And you just don't have the resources to actually learn or understand about a subject. And then there's willful ignorance, right? There's certain people out there that are standing behind this all lives matter concept that don't want to take the time to go out and learn and educate themselves, or even to listen to their black peers. You know, sometimes you see, you know, and I don't want to generalize, but sometimes there's some people from the white race that will go out of their way to say, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? They're so quick to jump to deflections, and they don't really want to take a step back to listen from the black perspective. Because, like you said, you're not a black man, so you're not going to understand where we're coming from.
So shut up and listen.
Correct. And it could be literally just that simple, you know. And we're not generally trying to be divisive either. And I think that's the thing also that people bring up is like, hey, we don't want to, you know, deflect. We don't want to be divisive. Race is not an issue. Stop bringing it up. It's just like, well, until you acknowledge race and that it is an issue, how are we going to be able to get better from there?
No, I agree with you. I agree with you 100% on that, and that's why I wanted to preface by saying those who are just truly ignorant and they want to learn and they don't have any ill intent, but they just don't know because they don't have any. Maybe they don't have any affiliation with any black people in their lives. Maybe they never met a black person, or maybe they have and they just don't believe it because they feel like maybe it's a coincidence just because it's never happened to them. So I think you did a great job of putting that distinction between willful ignorance and just normal ignorance, because I'm just on the side of having a certain level of empathy for those who have just a pure ignorance, not the willful ignorance of those who have have that lack of experience, education, or just interaction with someone that may understand to a better extent. Yeah. But with that being said, going back into the All Lives Matter a little bit, once All Lives Matter kicked off initially, did you ever initially agree with the whole premise behind it? Did you ever have any conflict internally? Like, well, man, they got a good point. Like, all lives do matter. Like, I don't want to make people feel singled out. Like, you know what I mean?
Oh, that's a tough question. And I'll be the first. I'm my own harshest critic. Initially, no, I had no empathy for them. I did not understand the fact or where that even came from, and I was highly offended. Right, but then that also comes back to, like I said, willful ignorance from on my behalf. I wasn't trying to listen to that. I wasn't trying to hear some people that were making valid points, you know, but they just weren't understanding where we were coming from. Right, they were thinking of Black Lives Matter as an organization instead of the concept, right? So initially, I will say I did not feel any empathy. I was caught off guard. And I was just like, what is this? You know, what is all that? Like, why is as soon as we try to make some growth or have our own fight, something, it's always something, right? But I genuinely do understand some people that just have the lack of education that do not understand that all lives, that we're not saying that all lives don't matter. Right. All lives, of course, all lives matter. Right, obviously. But until, and I know it's a corny saying that everybody says, but until there's enough focus on some of these, and it's not just black people sometimes as well, it is other minorities as well. But until everybody has an equal foot in the game, an equal step, how can we progress as an all in one? Right. So that's just my take on that.
Right. No, I feel that, and first I just want to say I appreciate your genuine honesty, because it's hard to admit those things, your initial feelings on things. You know, it's easier to just talk about once you gather more information, hear other people's views on things. You know, you finally make your determination and you just roll with it. Right. But I appreciate that, and going off of that, I would say me personally, I did have some conflict with it. I thought initially, like, man, like, that's a good point. Like, all lives do matter. Like, I don't want people to feel singled out, because in my head, like, I want just equality throughout it all. So that's what I see when I look at people, when I deal with conversations. But I do realize that there's the other side that black people have to deal with. So it was difficult for me to begin with, because I was empathizing with those people and I felt conflicted. But as I began to filter through everything I saw through social media and other people's views, I came back to just my heart, you know, what I felt, what I deal with what people that look like me deal with. And I was like, man, I'm not with that. You know, obviously, to your point, all lives do matter, and I'm not disregarding that. But all lives aren't in trouble right now. It's Black lives. You know, if you have 2 children and one of them goes missing, like whose life is in danger? Who are you worried about that at that point? The child that's with you, or the child that's missing? You know, you're gonna go with the child that's missing. So it's the same thing in my viewpoint on that regard.
Cool. You actually touched on, that point about, what is important at the time and that all people are important, right? So I'm going to ask you this. Did you see the hashtag that was trending on 9/11? The great memorial.
I read a little bit about it, yeah.
Okay, so if for the viewers out there, I'll give you a little background on it. All buildings matter actually with hashtag, and it went trending on 9/11. Of course, the memorial of the attack on the Twin Towers, right? There was a big tear in the media about if that was okay, if that was insensitive, and things of that nature, right? The quote was actually originally brought up by Michael Chi in one of his Netflix specials, where he made a very strong point about that. So before we even get into that, I want to see what your thoughts were when you actually saw that hashtag get brought up.
Yeah, so my initial thoughts were like, I don't disregard that the buildings matter or that the event matters, that like that was a historic thing that happened to everyone's society. Everyone's impacted in a way.
Right.
So I don't want to disregard that. So I want to put that out there initially to preface everything, because it's a very important thing. And I learn something new every year about what happened that day, and it impacts me differently as I get older and gain different perspective. But with that being said, what I gather, my biggest takeaway from that whole thing is that people have the capacity, the mental capacity to understand the Black Lives Matter movement.
Right.
Because if you can take that same, it's literally the same ideal concept and apply it to buildings, in a historical day of tragedy, you can do the same thing for the Black Lives Matter movement. Right. It has the same ideal, same concept. It just shows that it's willful ignorance, to your point, to a certain segment of people. So you have a choice in how you think about things. It just, do you want to intentionally disregard or misdirect what the whole point of it, everything is about? So that was my biggest takeaway. Is like, so you do understand what Black Lives Matter means. Right. You're choosing to just ignore it and disregard and push it off because it doesn't fit your agenda, or you're afraid. Maybe if you're one of those, that segment of people, you're afraid of people bringing attention to that black man's plight, and it messes up what you got going on, because now you worried about black men actually getting ahead somewhere.
Correct. And everything you just said hit right in the head where my thoughts were with it. When it comes down to all buildings matter, of course, it's not going to be trending, or it's not going to stay around, and it's not an organization. Same as all lives matter. There's no foundation behind it. There's no plight. There's no growth that is needed, right? So the whole purpose of all buildings matter was just to show that the insensitivity of that, and it is an insensitive hashtag to use, of course, but the insensitivity behind that is the same premise that all lives matter is founded behind. So that's I'm glad we're on the same page with that one for sure, though. So, but yeah, that's all we had to discuss today. Before we wrap up, I want to announce that we will be promoting Small Business of the Month and a Charity of the Month that we would like all of our viewers to come support. So yeah, we got some really big things coming up for that. Our Charity of the Month is actually going to be Chicago Sky's very own Lene Harper. She has that Harper Kid Foundation. So she will actually be having a back-to-school event out in the city this weekend. The link will be actually posted on the screen right here, and then we also have the links to her social medias and where you can donate in the notes of our description of the video. All
right, cool. Thanks for concluding that, BT, as well said. But before we let you all go, we do have a challenge for each and every one of you. It's something that can be easy, but it's also something that's difficult to do because it takes you stepping out of your comfort zone. But without stepping out of your comfort zone, it's hard to grow. So with that being said, our challenge for the week is we want to give you a challenge to where I want you to go out, and if you're of the Black Lives Matter movement, I want you to go out and speak to someone that is of the All Lives Matter movement, and just simply in a very respectful, calm manner, ask for their thoughts, their insight, their reasoning behind it. I'm not saying that you have to agree by any means, but I'm just saying ask for their thoughts, insight, because it may give you a different perspective of why they think that way, and you may be able to give them an alternative perspective and maybe change theirs or vice versa, or just agree to disagree, which is okay to do. And alternatively, if you're of the All Lives Matter movement, reach out to someone who's of the Black Lives Matter movement. Once again, approach it with a lot of respect and also a level of sensitivity, because it is a very, very important, sensitive subject, and ask them what's their reasoning behind it. And when I say ask them about that, on both sides, I mean actively listen. So don't listen to respond. Hear everything that they have to say, internalize it, and then form your response. Or you don't even have to respond. Sometimes just listening is enough. Digest it and take it and do what you want with it. But just simply have that conversation is all I'm saying. And like I said, it's something that's easy to do. Doesn't cost you any money. Doesn't cost you any extra time. Maybe 5-10 minutes of your time. But it's not easy to do at the same time. So that's my challenge for you all this week. All right. But aside from that, thank you all for tuning in. Please like, comment, and subscribe. We would love to hear you all's feedback.
Yes,
spread love. It's contagious. God bless.
God bless.